Mayor's monthly report, and we've got that's on the supplementary agenda. There are 2 months, as this is the last scheduled meeting. Sorry, I can't seem to open. Awesome. Right. So, okay, well, these cover August and September. So there were a number of events that happened in August that I've called out here. The opening of the UCSA building. We used to call it the Studis building when I was at university. I studied formally CAF 101, as we used to call it back in the day. Spent a lot of time in the cafeteria, and it was certainly a centre of student activity back in the day. It will be more than that now. It is an extraordinary building, so I know that a number of us got the opportunity to have a look through it before it officially opened, and but the opening was fantastic. The new Nyamarsh Theatre was great, and it was great to see the names that were previously associated with the Student Union building, including Bentley the cat. Bentley ran for student president one year, as I recall, so it really is a community asset as well. So that was great. The launch of the South Island Air Ambulance helicopter service by the Minister of Health was actually a great opportunity to look at GCH Aviation. They're an outstanding local firm. Started off with one helicopter in New Brighton as Garden City Helicopter Tours, and now it's this extraordinary service that provides the Westpac Rescue Helicopter and New Zealand Flying Doctors Services, but it is also facilitating the arrival and departure of private jets. It's quite an interesting firm, so I certainly would recommend councillors to go for a visit. The Curry family, I know, would welcome you. It is a family firm that has started up and really expanded, but they really do have a commitment to the wider South Island as well. The ASEN's Innovation Awards dinner was fantastic to see Tūranga recognised again and receive another award, the Special Community Award for the people of Christchurch, which was fantastic to see, but also Lewis Bradford receiving an award for the structural design of Tūranga, and that's what's represented there. Wainoni Avonside Community Services Trust, I've got a special place in my heart for that, because I was their MP for a number of years. People like Betty Chapman are just the salt of the earth and the rock upon which community is built. She is an extraordinary human being. That building, sadly, was at the end of its life. They couldn't invest in it after it was red zoned, essentially. They've sold the building, and so this was their final day of events there. Followed the following week, on the 4th of September, by their official reopening in Burwood, and it was great to see that they're now in a more salubrious environment, and they'll grow that into their own home, and it really will be fantastic. Going to the calligraphy exhibition at Tūranga was again a fantastic example of what we can celebrate within our city. Master Tung is 99 years old and still going strong, and his calligraphy is exquisite. So I do recommend the exhibition is still going, so I do recommend that. The Christchurch conversation with Helen Clark was awe-inspiring. The young people who sat on the stage with her after Dr. Bronwyn Hayward had led a conversation with Helen, the young people then put their own questions to her, and it was extremely engaging. TEDx, big shout out to Kyla Colburn and her amazing team. This is the 10th edition that we had of TEDx. and I did have the privilege of meeting DeRay McKesson, who was an incredibly powerful speaker on innovation, equity and justice, and I was really impressed with the use of data to empower communities, activists and decision makers in this world of fake news. It was refreshing to hear the plain and simple truth. And there were a number of other events and still a lot of follow-up from the post 15th of March with some amazing gifts to the city and to our communities. So that was my August report, and then in September, of course, with the Mid-Autumn Festival, there were a lot of events to go to. The Gansu Province Party Secretary visit in honour of our 35th anniversary of our sister city relationship between Christchurch and Gansu Province. It's actually the second oldest sister city relationship between New Zealand and China. The Hindu birth of Ganesha festival was fantastic. The Philippine Awards was on the same night as the Vietnamese Mid-Autumn Festival dinner, so I had to swap between the two with Yanni accompanying me to both. And then the Smart Christchurch Innovation Expo, that was well worth going to. I hope councillors actually went down to the town hall and had a wee look-see. I got stuck at the City Care site around monitoring of water pressure and quality. That gives me great hope for the future as well, because they're going to have so much access to data that will help us protect our systems into the future, and we know a lot more about our assets than other cities do, which is why I think we can act with confidence in that regard. The opening of the CSO Centre at the Christchurch Town Hall was absolutely fantastic, as were the tributes of Aroha. The Westpac Champion Business Awards, which will feature in a presentation that I will make shortly, was also outstanding. But my little thing that just made my day was the Kate Shepherd announcement. The Kate Shepherd House announcement. I thought that we'd lost it, when the government said that it had not been able to settle, and they hadn't been able to settle with the previous owner, and the work carried on behind the scenes, and the ministry, the Heritage New Zealand was able to secure the purchase on behalf of the government and on behalf of the people of New Zealand, but it is such an awesome legacy for us, becoming a heritage venue and education centre, and I think that's just going to be absolutely outstanding. So I will welcome any questions that people might have of me. There being none, would someone like to move the receipt? Jimmy Chen will move it, and Andrew Turner will second it. So I will put the motion. All those.
Opportunity for some comment.
Oh, okay. I thought I was going to get away scot-free.
I would like to take the opportunity for some comment. So, Leanne, thank you for this report. These mayor's reports, I think, have been a great addition to our council agendas. And I think what these reports have done is to show the breadth of the role of the mayor, and in particular the breadth of the civic role of the mayor. Looking at these reports that are in front of us, I was at just a small number of the events and activities that have been described, and I think the other things that these reports do show the huge amount of work that you do, much of which, without a report like this, may not be as visible as these reports have allowed it to be. So I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for that work, but also to thank the councillors that have stepped in, realising that you can't be in two places at once, to make sure that the city is well represented, in fact generally very well represented, both within the city and outside of the city, as it needs to be and as it should be. But I thought it was appropriate just to say those words of thanks now as we're receiving these last two reports of this triennium. So thank you.
Thank you. I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. There was another aspect to the report. Sorry, I thought there was another resolution. This one. Yeah, sorry, no, there was, because there's a, sorry. No. I thought that we were going to acknowledge the departing council. Sorry, I thought that there was some wording that went into the cover report. Okay, sorry, that's my fault. So I apologise. What am I going to do? Okay, so
Yeah,
no, okay.
you can.
Yeah, but I want to do something else. So,
Why don't you suspend standing orders?
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
You
all
don't
right.
need to. You don't need to. You don't need to.
I don't need to.
You don't need
Okay,
to.
so
You can do whatever you like.
okay,
Yeah.
so we'll come back. Well, we've done the resolution for number 1. Sorry, but there was a hidden item 2. So a second resolution. So and it is receive the mayor's report, brief report, report on the term, and acknowledge and thank councillors Vicky Buck, Phil Clearwater and Raf Manji for their service to the city. We're yeah, and thank departing councillors. Yeah. No. These are people who've notified that they're not going to run again. And so, but I want to introduce this item just by saying a few words. And I don't often stand, but I am going to stand for this one. So just reflecting on the past 3 years as this term comes to a close, has been both uplifting and challenging, and I shared with some of you earlier on about going through all of my mayor's reports for the last 3 years and reflecting on achievements and also some of the challenges that we've faced. The openings have represented so many opportunities, and I'm not going to list them all, but we had the dedication of the Canterbury Earthquake National Memorial. We had the launch of the Community Resilience Partnership Fund, which was a joint fund between the council and the Minister of Health, a real partnership committed to wellbeing. We saw the opening of Hayata, the modern learning environment, Te Roto o Wairewa Memorandum of Understanding, which is a commitment between the council and the Runanga on maintaining and monitoring the opening and closing of the Lake Wairewa, Lake Forsyth, Little River. The launch of the Student Volunteer Army and the RSA Serve for New Zealand with tree planting in the Port Hills. We had the cruise berth announcement for Littleton. We had the launch of the Christchurch Multicultural Strategy. We had the Camellia Room, recognising 100 years since the first woman was elected to the City and Council. I've put in Pecking Order opening night because I just love that movie. We had, there were just so many different openings, and I meant to highlight them so that we could look at them. We had the Sumner Centre opening. We had the electric vehicle launches, Yugo Citywide Shared Fully Electric, taking 45 tonnes of CO2 equivalent out of the atmosphere, the Omeo trial at CIAL, the future of Christchurch Cathedral confirmed. We hosted the Social Enterprise World Forum. We had the premiere of The Changeover, a fantastic movie. We shared so many different openings, some sad as well, the City Vision Women's Night Shelter, but a very necessary part of it. The 30th anniversary of Hinawai Reserve, the Cathay Pacific direct flight from Hong Kong, the Riwi Alley commemorations, the China-New Zealand Mayoral Forum, and the work that has been initiated off the back of that. We had the Zephyr Airworks trialling self-piloted electric air taxis here in Canterbury, the electric rubbish truck piloted by Waste Management. We had a number of things, the town hall opening, the Autumn Bradley Park historic stone cottage, the opening of Taiora QE2 Sport and Rec. We had so many different welcomes to our city, and then I listed a number in the 2018-19 year as part of the annual report. And I guess the reason that I list those is just to look at the extraordinary nature of the good things that have happened in our city. But that being said, disaster after disaster marred this term. The Huranui Kaikoura earthquake was within a month of the 2016 election. The tsunami warning that was generated an hour after the earthquake occurred required us to review how we responded and led me to challenge the command approach of McDem. The Port Hills fire happened on the 14th of February 2017. We had major floods in July 2017. 2018 began with the enforced decision to chlorinate our drinking water. We had extreme weather events caused by ex-tropical cyclones, and of course the horror of the March 15 terror attacks that targeted our Muslim communities in their time of worship and prayer, and I've already spoken to that in my comments on the annual report. But as we come to this point at the end of this term, I want to pay tribute to the hard work and the commitment of the council staff that have supported us in all of these different both challenges and also the positive things that have been achieved. And I want to thank Mary Richardson for stepping into the acting chief executive role, and to acknowledge our former chief executive as she left us in June at the end of her contract. And I'm looking forward to the arrival of our new chief executive who will take up her role very shortly. But what I want to pay tribute to is to the hard work also and commitment of our three retiring councillors, Councillors Vicky Buck, Phil Clearwater and Raf Manji, who've all chosen not to seek re-election to the council in the local body elections this year. Today's their last official scheduled council meeting, but as I've said before, there may be another. And I just want to acknowledge each of you. I should refer to you formally as Councillor Buck, but Vicky, your involvement in local body politics dates back to 1975. In 1975, when at 19 years old you became the country's youngest city councillor. It makes it very easy to work things out. She went on to become Christchurch's first woman mayor, serving with distinction for 3 terms between 1989 and 1998. You then took a break from politics and did a whole lot of really interesting things, but returned to serve as a councillor for the Riccarton ward in 2013. And I personally cannot thank you enough for doing that. I know that you blame me for it, but I did suggest that there was an alternative, and you listened to me. You helped me transition from central government to local government, and I really appreciate that. It was always going to be hard for me coming from central government. I knew what I knew about central government, but I was entering into a world that I didn't have the experience of. But with you by my side, it made all of the difference in the world. So thank you very much personally from the bottom of my heart for what you did for me, but also what you did for the city. You've taken up you were Deputy Mayor from 2013 to 2016. You chaired the Innovation and Sustainable Development Committee. You made that your own, you made your mark. You have required us as a council to look to our obligations in terms of climate change, And as somebody else once said, we are the first generation to experience the impacts of climate change, and we are the last generation who can do something about it. And Vicky, thank you for your leadership, thank you for your incredible courage, and thank you for all your Facebook postings. I'm going to miss that. I don't know whether we can contract you back in just to do Facebook postings on council activities, because you make them more interesting than they sound while we're experiencing them at the time. But thank you very much. Councillor Phil Clearwater, you were elected to council the same time as I was elected as the mayor in 2013, after having served 18 years on the Spraden Heathcote Community Board, including 12 years as board chair, and I want to acknowledge that service as part of my acknowledgement of your contribution as well. You started in 2013 by chairing the Infrastructure, Transport and Environment Committee, and under your leadership a lot was achieved. And I want to acknowledge that, because I know that you've taken on a different role, the Social, Community Development and Housing Committee, in the last 3 years. But that has just shown the breadth and the depth of your experience, and the incredible background that you have brought to the table. What I love about the council as a table is that we all have different personalities, we have different styles, we have different skills, we have different strengths, and yes, we all have weaknesses as well. And how we, sort of adapt to how others might respond to them is also the mark of an individual in terms of their character. So thank you very much for your service to your community and to your city, and your support for me and your role as well. Thank you very much. And Raf, I've left you last, not for any reason other than you have been, you've kind of been the voice of a, I was going to say the voice of a conscience, but it's a conscience that reflects your background, not only in social enterprise, but also, and your incredible financial background, but it is that commitment to the city that you were prepared to make 6 years ago. And I know you blame me as well. But to be honest with you, in this forum, I couldn't have done what I did without you. You have made such an extraordinary difference. Your capacity to grasp the essence of what needs to be done in terms of our governance role in holding the organisation to account for both financial rigour, but also performance in terms of the delivery of projects. You've stepped into roles in a project governance sense that are outside the normal roles of governance, and we all thank you for doing that. I don't think that we would be in the position that we are in today if it hadn't have been for you providing leadership around the global settlement of our insurance to start with. I think we were all in a state of shock when we first read the details of the cost-sharing agreement and what had been agreed to ahead of any financial assessment of what we would expect from our insurance. And of course, I think you've made a number of comments in relation to the sense of indicating to reinsurers ahead of that negotiation being concluded where the government might want certain assets to be located, which might indicate a certain predetermination as to the outcome of the assessment. Not that I'll go into details of that here, but your insightfulness, your financial background, but also your commitment to social enterprise and your commitment to people and your commitment to inspire and mentor other people, young people coming through the system and encouraging them to take leadership roles. You really are a valuable asset to the city, and I don't want you to leave. So just bear that in mind. I think that there are ongoing roles for you in terms of assisting this council in its next phase, and certainly if I'm in a position to do so, I shall be knocking on your door pretty soon thereafter. So to all three of you, thank you very much for what you have done for us. I'm going to invite each of you to give your valedictory address to the council, and I would like to take this final opportunity to thank all councillors for their commitment. We don't always agree with each other. I don't often expect unanimity around the table, but what I do expect is a willingness to engage and to try and find solutions that as many of us as possible can agree with, and for that I thank you very much. I've spent the last certainly 6 years, but worked very hard in the last 3 years building relationships across the region and building relationships across the agencies that we deal with, and of course central government's key to that as well. And I think relationships are the key to the city going forward. So thank you all very much for being willing to have a relationship with me, with each other, and ensuring that we do get what we can done in a way that is respectful of each other and respectful of the community as a whole. So on that note, could I invite Raf Manji to give his valedictory address?
Oh God, how do I follow that? Thank you, Leanne, for those comments. It's interesting reflecting here after 6 years, which, to me has been kind of a project. It's been ultimately solving the council's financial woes post-earthquake and delivering what was an incredibly ambitious, over-ambitious project coming out of the blueprint, and also sadly underfunded. And that's never a position anyone wants to be in. In accepting the annual report just earlier today and reflecting on the asset base of the council, nearly $15 billion of assets in the group, with nearly $11 billion of net equity. That is what we have. That is our clear net worth. The city is actually in a fantastic financial position. I know sometimes ratepayers don't feel that, but it is. And to give you some sense of where we've come from, in 2013, so 6 years ago, the total assets were just over $9 billion, and the net equity was around $7 billion. So we've increased our net equity by nearly $4 billion. So we have got something for all this money that we have spent. And I think, for me, leaving the council in a position where the next council has probably a bit more luxury to engage with its community and decide on the priorities for the next 5 to 10 years, it will be coming off a good base. And we've done a lot of work and a lot of expenditure that other councils will have to face in the coming years. So it's a fantastic place to finish. The global settlement was signed off by Cabinet, I believe, couple of days ago, this week, and that brings an end to that pretty terrible cost share agreement that we all discovered when we first came in 2013, and we could talk all day and all night about that. And when I reflect on some of the dramas, especially in that first term, which was incredibly difficult because we were flying blind a lot of the time. We arrived in an organisation that didn't have a chief executive, didn't have a chief financial officer, had an insurance claim that was up in the air. I still remember, Leanne, that first meeting we had with the local Authority Protection Plan chair, and that was quite robust when I expressed incredulity on how poor the situation was. They were interesting days, and I'm sure some of those stories will have to wait for memoirs because we couldn't possibly talk about them now. But we've come a long way, and I think people have done a lot of hard work. It's been very challenging. I think the organisation has actually done a great job in phenomenally difficult circumstances. We've learnt a lot about insurance and risk, and a lot of the stuff I've been involved in is under the engine, and it doesn't always see the light of day. But we have done a lot of work around risk management. internal audit processes, making sure the organisation doesn't make the mistakes it made previously, and getting ourselves into shape so you can actually sit down and do the fun stuff, the stuff that, you know, Vicky does so incredibly well. And we need that, but we need a firm platform to be able to go out and engage and do that stuff. I think we're in good shape for the long-term plan. We've already put that process into place, and I'm really excited and hopeful that the new council will get around to looking at things like citizens' assemblies, participatory budgeting, and giving their citizens better opportunities to engage around a whole range of issues. That is the biggest challenge for government, local or central, all around the world. If you lose touch with your people, you have a huge problem. I think Christchurch does that pretty well. It has done that well in the past. But the earthquake has put a cloud over everything, and sometimes when I'm out there talking to people, I still get the sense they don't understand what happened. They don't understand the financial implications. They don't understand how much it has cost. But I have no doubt, come 2025, this will be the best city in New Zealand by a long way. And it will be. And I think if you get some of those tricky issues right, you know, the transport is challenging, but there's a great opportunity. The foundation, the canvas here is still ready to be worked on. We're still only probably halfway through. I remember Art Agnos, who came here in May 2011 for the TEDx EQ Chucha conference, and he walked around the city and he said 10 to 15 years. Yeah. He'd been through it before. He knew how long these things take. He goes, it always takes longer and always costs more. And the blueprint just overpromised and gave people, you know, a full sense of what was coming. And we've had to battle with that, and it's been difficult. I would like to say a few thanks. I want to thank all those people who've supported me over the last 6 years, inside council and outside council. I see Mabel there at the back. Thanks for all your help, Mabel, over the years. You give a lot of support to the councillors. We have busy lives, and our organisation sometimes slips, so thank you for all your support. I'd like to acknowledge my fellow councillors. I have no doubt, even though we do disagree from time to time, that everyone is extremely committed to serving the public, and people work incredibly hard. So I'd like to acknowledge all of you. Leanne, I would like to acknowledge you as our mayor of the last 6 years. You know, we've worked closely together. That first term was really pretty rough, and you know, we had to fight a lot in Wellington. I'm just remembering my favourite meeting of all of them was in the PM's office before the long-term plan, and that kind of encapsulated the whole drama that we dealt with for so long. And we had quite a few of those interesting conversations. But you've worked incredibly hard. Being the mayor is a phenomenally difficult job. It's one of the hardest jobs in this country. And in the situation that we came into, the demands are phenomenal. You have to kind of do so many different roles well, and no one's perfect. No one can do all of those roles themselves. So you do require a lot of support, but you've stuck at it. You represent the city incredibly well, and I thank you for doing that, and wish you well in the future. And finally, I'd like to thank the voters, the citizens of this great city, well, I could say thank you for electing me, but you know, mostly thank you for electing me, and giving me the privilege and opportunity to represent you and act on your behalf in your best interest, which I've always tried to do. How difficult that has been sometimes, and sometimes it's not that pleasant on the pocket, but I believe we've mostly made the right decisions. But thank you for that. It is a privilege to do this role. And I think for all those people who are putting their name forward, that's great. But you do carry a big responsibility, but it is also an honour to serve the public. So I'd just like to say thank you, and that's all from me. Thank you.
Phil Clearwater.
Well, Councillor, I want to start off actually by thanking you, Leanne, firstly for your kind words. I felt a little surprised but quite touched. And I want to thank you too, Leanne, for your huge dedication to our city. And like your mayoral report today, to me is an example of how extremely hardworking you are. And also want to thank Councillor Andrew Turner too for your the leadership you both have shown while I've been a councillor. So it's sort of quite incredible almost and hard to believe that this is, well, almost my last council meeting. I thought it was going to be my last, but close to it. So as Leanne indicated, I was first elected to the Spraydon Heathcote Community Board in 1995. And in fact, historically, it was an exciting time in political
Who was
history.
the mayor then? Oh, sorry.
There you are. It was exciting in terms of political history because we'd had the election of the Clark Anderton government, and I'm fairly sure, Leanne, that you were part of a key part of that government. And for me, the background to my journey really in local government was that I had huge admiration for the social justice values and leadership of the late Jim Anderton, who was the MP for Sydenham and later the Deputy Prime Minister. And I was proud to be chair of Jim's electorate committee. And so I want to start today in leaving council to pay tribute to the late Jim Anderton. And I have to say, I couldn't have had a finer mentor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to acknowledge Carol Anderton as a former city councillor who did a lot besides supporting Jim and a lot of people. She did a lot to develop social housing with the new complexes then, such as the Tommy Taylor Courts when they were new. And I learned a lot from Carol, but also from former councillor and committee board chair Oscar Alpers with his very calm and thoughtful chairing. And today I also want to acknowledge Councillor Tim Scandrett, because Tim has worked so collaboratively with me, particularly to solve so many residents, often very challenging issues in the Spraydon Cashmere ward. So thank you, Tim. And for my third term at the community board, I was quite surprised that the board members asked me to be the chair. And it was a steep learning curve, I'd have to say, with some rather stroppy but totally passionate board members like Carol and Carolyn, God bless them, and as well Dr Megan Woods, now the Minister, and besides Sue Wells and Barry Corbett. So now you know why some people say that when I'm chairing meetings I'm as controlling as a headmaster. So after 4 terms as chair of the board, I think I got most of the knack. I never had to send anyone out of the room, but 1 or 2 went close. However, there's no doubt, and I will say it again, that the Spraydon Cashmere Community Board was simply the best. So being on the community board was very good training for me to be a city councillor. And at the beginning of my first term in 2013 was a really exciting time. And then, you know, looking back, it was just a little more than 2 years after the earthquakes, and there was a huge amount of reconstruction of the whole city in front of us. And then, as you know, in March 2014, we had some of the biggest floods in Christchurch's history. And so I'm proud that Leanne set up the Mayor's Task Force on Flooding, and that led to the development of the land drainage program. And it's been a remarkably successful program, returning much of Christchurch to its pre-earthquake conditions for flood control. And of course, a major project I am particularly proud of is the Major Cycleways program, and we're well on our way to completing the 13 planned major cycleways. I want to say to the residents some of whom have never seen a single bike on a cycleway, well, the council stats recorded from our counters show in late August over 300,000 cycle trips were made. And so over the last 3 years that Councillor Pauline Cotter has chaired the ITI committee, there's been a growth of 20% each year, which is increasing, with Unicycle now having 1,000 cyclists a day and Quarryman's Trail on Antigua Street carrying about 800 cyclists a day. So that's lots of cars off the road, and I'm sure leading to a real transport change of mode in Christchurch. I want to thank some people after many years of working with you, but there's always a risk of leaving some special people out, and so I apologise if this happens. I want to start by thanking all the members of my committee, the Social Community Development and Housing Committee, and in particular Councillor Glenn Livingston as Deputy Chair and Chair of the Housing Subcommittee. Glenn, you've been a loyal Deputy Chair and have worked really hard. And also I want to thank Councillor Jimmy Chen as Chair of the Multicultural Subcommittee. Because in my view, both those subcommittees have worked regularly and hard with good results. And while I'm talking about referring to housing, I want to certainly congratulate Vicky on her perseverance with the shared equity scheme being finally set up, but also her commitment to the establishment of the Otautahi Community Housing Trust. And in relation to our Multicultural Committee, and the work that's been done here for many years, our council was well placed in our relationships with people of other cultures when the terrible massacre occurred on the 15th of March. Availability of housing is a huge issue right across New Zealand, as well as in Christchurch, and fixing council social housing due to long-standing underfunding is not a new problem. But I'm proud that council has contributed to the funding of the Housing First program, as has been referred to earlier by Glenn, I think. The people in our city who are homeless include the most vulnerable, many having literally lived on the street or under bridges for a long period of time. Again, this problem is not new, and I know that as a former mental health social worker. But I'm proud that the key to the success of the Housing First program has been the excellent collaboration between the housing agencies, with strong support from our City Council and central government, working in a genuine partnership with our housing and helping agencies. I'm also proud of Council's excellent heritage strategy and implementation plan. With a huge loss of heritage in our city from the earthquakes, having a clear plan supported by Ngāi Tahu and strong community interest and investment that will continue to assist the story of restoration of Christchurch's beautiful historic buildings and places. And I'll reiterate some of the buildings that other councillors and elected members have referred to today. Our Town Hall, the Nurses Memorial Chapel, the Rose Historic Chapel, and the Sign of the Tākehi. All of these historic buildings are now there for our communities to use and enjoy, and they're clear symbols of Christchurch's proud heritage. And I also want to pass on my sincere thanks to the people like the Historic Places Trust Board and all of the Christchurch people who have helped stop what would have been a greater loss than what we did endure. I want to thank each and every one of our council staff. As elected members, we're indeed very fortunate to have your knowledge and skills to advise and assist us. And I've really valued this over my years as a community board member, a chair, councillor and committee chair. And I especially want to also thank Mary Richardson for your leadership, Mary, as acting CEO over the last recent months, and also earlier as the principal advisor to my committee. I also sincerely thank Brent Smith, John Fussell and Andrew Rutledge as committee advisors, besides David Corlett and the earlier committee secretaries for your wise advice and helpful assistance. And for the ITI committee, I sincerely thank Dave Adamson, Richard Osband and Lynette Ellis from Transport, and Keith Davidson from Land Drainage and Carolyn Ingalls in conjunction with all your hard-working teams. And finally, I do thank both Raywin Ogilvie and particularly Mabel Ching for your efficient, loyal and hard-working secretarial assistance. And to all of you as City Councillors, I know that being a councillor can be very hard and challenging work, and I wish those of you continuing for the next term the very best. I'm confident that the appointment of Dawn Baxendale as Council's new Chief Executive will assist the necessary change for the whole of Council. And leaving my community board and council does feel bittersweet. But I'm proud of the achievements we have made together, and no matter what the future brings, I hope to see you all again in some form.
Vicky Buck.
Can I just start by saying thank you to you for your comments? They were very kind. And I have to say it's the first time I've been called retiring in my entire life.
I meant it in the other sense.
It's great. I have to say to all councillors, I know how hard you work, and I appreciate that every time you come here it's a challenge. So I just want to say thank you for what you do, because I don't know that you that often get thanked for what you do. Leanne, in terms of your job, I know how full on it is. I know there's no rest from it, and that wherever you go, you remain the mayor, and that it is an incredibly hard and demanding job, and I wish you all the very best for the upcoming elections. To a whole heap of staff, to Mary for, I don't know when you sleep, Mary. I don't think you do.
Well, 3 and 4.
Because you're just there all the time. The incredible invention of the Office of the CE, so you can send them the weirdest and most amazing issues, especially to Margaret, who just goes, I don't know, she seems to get all mine. I know there's more people there, but Margaret seems to get all mine. I think they allocated me to Margaret early on. Thank you, Margaret. It's been amazing what you have done, and of the most diverse and incredible range of things. To Joss and Di and the team, I think you're amazing. I think Newsline is an incredible invention. I think it's great. And I think the work you do is incredible. To Brendan and Tony Moore and to the team at the Innovation and Sustainability Committee, who I thoroughly enjoy, I just want to say a huge thank you to you. You've made it fun. It's been great. And just in case you were wondering, we spent all the year's allocation of money on Monday. It's $1,200 left, yeah. To Bruce Rendell, he's not here, but I know Bruce works incredibly hard. He thinks he's going to get some sleep when I leave, because I won't be asking him things. To so many people who have been so cool, Dave Edmondson, just so many people. To the staff at the community board, I don't know how you've stayed sane. You have done so well. And to Sam at the Mayor's Welfare Fund and to the others at the Mayor's Welfare Fund, Sam has made an amazing difference. To Mabel, who has done God knows what all, to whatever you ask her, to Raywin and to Louise and to Ruth, thank you for everything that you do, and to so many of you. To the lunch crew of Pauline and Anne in particular, but sometimes Phil, sometimes Glenn, sometimes Sarah, sometimes Yanni, sometimes Mike, all sorts of people who just keep others sane. Really important. I think one of the secrets of council is that people actually don't know the incredible breadth and how full of possibilities councils are. So in a meeting, you can be dealing with water, rates, new rates policies, cycleways, a new road, community facility, skate park, the impact of government changes, or 16 other things, along with Vox Pops, which I love Vox Pops, because you just have no idea what's going to come at you. And actually now I should remind you as councillors, you actually get paid properly, which is a relatively new innovation. When I was first a councillor, the maximum pay was $260 a year. So all the councillors worked as well as be on the council. And you only got that if you came to the maximum number of meetings. I have to say, coming back into council, particularly for the Riccarton ward, which I abolished on the Local Government Commission in 1989, has a certain irony to it, because I can remember Dick Harrington telling me what he thought of abolishing the Riccarton ward, which apparently had nothing to do with Christchurch City Council. I have to say another special thank you to Leanne, because Trevor Mallett, when he was Minister of Education, and we were applying to set up a special character school in Christchurch, Discovery, and later Unlimited, sent Leanne down to, I think, try and talk us out of it, or to check whether we were half-pay decent people.
Associate Minister of Education.
Oh, that's why I sent you. Okay. But she obviously went back and told him the right things, and it did mean for at that time that we were allowed to establish Discovery 1 and then Unlimited, which was fantastic, because I had a son who was hating school with a vengeance and didn't realise how many other kids were in exactly the same situation. But when we established them, it's now our Tawhiti Unlimited Discovery, and is back in the town, and I have to apologise to Nikki Kay for nagging her every week on that on that subject when she was Minister, to bring it back in. So some of the things that were fundamental in setting that up were to remind kids, particularly, to question everything, because just because it's been that way forever, and that's the way it's always been done, it doesn't necessarily make it right or sensible. So question everything, and keep that sense of curiosity and possibility, and do the things that excite and enchant you. And it's okay to fail, you will often, and anything may be possible, but you won't know until you give it a go. When we were writing the document, because I got to write all the documents because I know nothing about education, so I got to write them. I don't know how that worked. But I was determined in the schedule of what we were allowed to do to put the F word in there, and no, and it's not the usual F word that I use, the fun word in education. And I have to say, getting that through the Ministry of Education was quite a challenge. Apparently education is not meant to be fun, but I absolutely think it is, and I absolutely think it needs to be in politics as well. So that it's really important that that whatever you're doing is fun, and that applies to this job as well as any others. In New Zealand and in Christchurch, I think we have enormous freedom to question everything, to break the rules, to do whatever. And I remember when I was at Girls High, I questioned in the 4th year there, because I was planning to stay, why did I have to do Latin? Because I still don't know the answer, and I wanted to do Japanese or Mandarin. And I suggested to the then principal, Miss Prisk, that since she couldn't give me an answer right then, I'd come back and debate it later. And she said, "There will be no debate, Vicky." So at that point, I decided it was time to leave school and go to uni. So I went to uni at 16, and I have to say a similar thing happened when I did my thesis, which started off being because I was already on the council when I was writing it. So I thought, well, I can get good help from all the people around me. So it was local government, who pays, who governs, and who benefits. And I wrote the chapter on who pays before I checked with the guy in charge, the professor, Keith Jackson, was that okay as a topic? And when I showed him the topic, he said, that's sociology, not political science. So I decided, well, having written the one on local government finance, I was now bored with it, so it would just be on local government finance. Great career move, I have to say. So I have to say, make sure that you keep the fun and the kindness in politics. There were a number of things that happened this term. The one I found the most devastating was the mosque attacks. It knocked me completely. And I have to say a huge, huge thank you to the many people, especially from the Muslim communities, who exhibited such amazing forgiveness and such love that I have seldom seen. And I have to say that helped me and so many of us enormously. I don't yet know if we've seen how powerful those responses from so many people in the Muslim communities was, and the power that it will continue to have. I think it was absolutely amazing. I found it the hardest thing ever to deal with, and what they did was just incredible. Sorry, it comes with laughing easily. It's the counter of that. And worse, my 2 kids both cry easily as well, and they blame me for it. So whenever there's a family row or anything, it's just horrible. I have to say, if we think about what councils are here for, I got told often, so many times in council, that you're here for the 3 R's, roads, rates and rubbish. And I think that is one of the 3 R's. I think that's complete rubbish. That there is way more to councils, especially city councils where you have a large city, than that. And I think we all want to be able to take for granted those basic things. And what city councils are about, what local government is about, is actually about helping all those who live here to be all that they can, because I think that's what makes city politics exciting, and that's how a community expresses its identity and what it wants to be. So that demands that we deal with housing, community facilities, means that the same opportunities are there for all people. It means safe cycleways on all school routes and all suburbs. It means opportunities for all cultures, all races, all ages, especially kids who are too young to be able to have the vote. And it means taking action on things that people find hard to visualise, such as climate change. And it means that we will live now, and for all of us, with incredible change at a rate that's unprecedented, that will make every structure in every organisation creak, because we have not dealt with the level of change that we will see. So I just want to say to all of you, you have an amazing position. Enjoy it, have fun, be kind to each other. Don't take the stress home, it's not worth it. It's not a good thing to take home. I had a mental thing that I developed when I was first on council of depositing the baggage at the door as I went out of the council room. I think it's quite a good thing to do. In terms of what's next, because I have such a defined career path in my life, I haven't got a clue. So I've got no idea. The only thing I suspect it will involve is something around climate change, because I think if you're living now, you're the last generation that has the chance to avoid the massive climate disruption that we're about to face and the mass extinctions that we're about to face. So if we don't do it, no one else will. But I want to wish all of you, I think you've been amazing to work with, actually. I think it's been a really good couple of terms of council. And so I want to say a huge thank you to all of you, especially you, Leanne, and wish you incredibly well. And whatever you're doing in the next term, I won't come back and make submissions, I promise. I didn't for 15 years. I had no intention of coming back. But have fun with what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Yeah, thank you. That's been an amazing presentation and a well worthwhile opportunity to hear from our three departing members. So thank you very much. So I will put the motion. Although, should I do that before I put the motion? Yeah, no, I will. Okay. Well, would you each like to come forward? Ref Manji. Here's a little one.
Is it like a clock?
Yeah.
I'm such a photographer.
Oh, that's good.
Jocelyn is fine. That's very good.
Thank you. And my personal gift, which is all sustainable, and it's this wonderful company, Atique, which has, it's made out of filtered water.
You don't have to sign the gift register now.
Yeah. It isn't a clock. Which is a chat.
Look at us go all great.
And a personal gift and Vicky.
Just what I need, a plaque.
Another one.
You want to play? She thinks it's for a tea. Well, I said it was a plaque.
I need toothpaste. Other side of it. Other side. Come on. Look like you're enjoying it. Look like you're enjoying it. Fun. Remember, you've got to have fun.
Oh, God. It's not in 1975.
Yeah, I've got one of these.
Right, okay. And
That's very sweet of you.
completely
Thank you.
recyclable,
Thank you very
completely sustainable. Impossible. Yeah, use your non-sustainable plastic to go with it. That's not my fault. All right, so after those presentations, I shall put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say